In this guide, we'll be getting into a premium armor category in Kenshi, that being chain armor. While most of our focus is going to be dedicated to chain shirts and chainmail, the chain armor category also has headgear and lower body options. For the purposes of this video, we'll be considering the upper body options in the shirt category and the lower body options. For chainmail that is classified as headgear, we'll get into that in a separate video dedicated to the head armor slot. On average, the benefits for wearing chain armor are comparable to the benefits of wearing plated armor. You're going to usually get higher protection stats with chain armor and a higher harpoon resistance, and then the trade-off for that is you will have more debuffs with chain armor compared to leather armor, and then the weight will also be heavier for chain armor compared to leather options. In the later stages of the game though, the heavier weight and the debuffs that are associated with chain armor are going to be worth the cost, because you're going to want any extra coverage you can get to prevent damage. And to start off strong, let's get right into what chain armor is most known for: protecting the chest and the stomach in the shirt armor slot. When it comes to what is the best chain armor option in the shirt category, there really isn't much of a contest. You're either going to want to be using blackened chainmail or regular chainmail. It would be fair to say that these two types of chainmail fulfill a similar role compared to the leather turtleneck for the leather shirt category. They're just overall going to be the best because their coverage stats are quite good, and their coverage of the right and left arm, in addition to covering the stomach and the chest, push them ahead of other options in the shirt category. Between blackened chainmail and regular chainmail, I would give blackened chainmail the edge here because it has a higher blunt resistance, and in exchange for that, you do have a lower cut resistance. Don't worry, I did the math for you too. Essentially, you're losing out on around 2% cut resistance by using blackened chainmail as opposed to regular chainmail. I'd say though that blunt resistance is more important than cut resistance, so I think blackened chainmail is superior here. And that's not even taking into consideration that blackened chainmail has other things going for it, like less severe debuffs and a higher sell value. Now, if there's anything that holds chainmail back, it's going to be the cost and the time associated with crafting it. We're going to get more into that later when we compare chainmail to the leather turtleneck. And just to be sure I mention it, there is a rusty chainmail option, but the statistics for rusty chainmail are going to be inferior to the blackened chainmail and the regular chainmail. For chain shirts that have shorter sleeves, things are pretty simple. It's also going to be the blackened chain shirt, which is the best option, but the blackened variant has less of an edge this time over the regular chain shirt. So you'll see here, the only difference is going to be the stealth debuff on the blackened chain shirt is going to be lower than the regular chain shirt. And for chain shirts, the trend also continues with the rusty variant. The rusty variant is fine. The statistics are all right. Problem is that its coverage stats are lower than both the blackened and the regular variant. If you were going to make a case for using a chain shirt instead of chainmail, then you would have a few valid points. First off, chain shirts are going to cover the chest and stomach by 100%, which is what you care the most about. Also, you're not giving up too much in terms of resistance. You're giving up about 2% blunt and 2% cut resistance in addition to 3 points of harpoon resistance. Altogether, that's not a ton that you're losing out on. And it's also nice that chain shirts are lighter, even if it's just a couple of kilograms. Sometimes can be convenient for characters who don't have a high strength stat. If we look at debuffs, the chain shirt has a few perks going on there too. There's less of a stealth penalty, less of a crossbows penalty, and less of a dexterity penalty. Chain shirts take less time to craft too, which is especially important if you're going to be crafting a lot of them. And if for some reason you were going to craft chainmail to sell to vendors, you would absolutely want to go with the blackened chain shirt because it's going to have a lower crafting time, yet the value and the sell value are the same as chainmail. Moving things along, Hivers have limited options in this armor category, similar to the leather shirt category. For chain armor in the shirt slot, they're only going to be able to wear the Hive variants, and the blackened Hiver chain shirt is going to be the best because it has a less severe stealth debuff, but the coverage stats for the regular Hiver chain shirt are going to be identical to the blackened variant. And for chain armor, there are technically 3 lower body options. First off, we have the cargo pants with the sneaky chain. They're pretty good, but their weight combined with their lower than average blunt resistance is tough to stomach. As for other chain options though, they do have a respectable harpoon resistance, but I think the samurai cloth pants do offer a better overall value. I can appreciate the aesthetic for this piece though, because they're solid black. They pretty much pair well with any upper body armor. Now, for the sneaky chain half pants, I'd say they're downright unusable. They look like a ripped up version of the cargo pants, and who would ever rip up a perfectly good pair of pants like that? It's just gross. The real atrocity, though, is the cut resistance of 19%. That means you'll effectively be getting around 9% cut resistance. For pants that require chainmail sheets to craft, and, being this heavy, that's just unacceptable. Lastly, for the lower body slot, we have the plated drifters leather pants. I mistakenly covered these in my plated armor guide because the term plated is in their name, yet they fall into the chain category. My opinion on them still stands though. I think they're a good middle ground between leather armor and the heavier plated armors, but if you're looking to heighten leg protection, you'll probably want to upgrade to samurai leg plates eventually, but the plated drifters leather pants are quite practical. It's always nice to have an extra 10% acid resistance too. Since chain armor's most important role is going to be filling the shirt armor slot, the main competition it has to face is that of the leather turtleneck. Since the blackened chainmail is going to be the best in slot chain armor shirt option, we're going to be comparing it with a leather turtleneck, giving a breakdown of why you might go with one option or the other. From purely a resistance perspective, it seems like chainmail is a no-brainer here, but there are a couple of things going on behind the scenes that are important to take into consideration. Perhaps most importantly, leather turtlenecks don't have a single debuff, which is important for characters who utilize sneak, dodge, or crossbow skills. Chainmail is also 5 times heavier than a leather turtleneck, and believe me, all that weight adds up, since training strength is one of the more tedious things you have to do in Kenshi. Another noteworthy edge that the leather turtleneck has is crafting speed. The leather turtleneck's base crafting duration is 35 hours, which is half the duration of the 70-hour base crafting time for chainmail. Crafting chainmail also has added costs in the form of obtaining the blueprint, smelting steel bars, and making chainmail sheets, while tanning leather is a relatively quick and cheap process. Altogether, I think it's more than fair to say that even though blackened chainmail is technically better than the leather turtleneck, crafting leather turtlenecks for your faction can be more practical depending on how much time and energy you want to spend making the armor. Do yourself one favor though, and make sure that you don't have armor smiths crafting chainmail until they're at a high level, like over 70 at least, because you want to make sure the odds of producing specialist or masterwork quality armor are pretty high, or you're going to feel like your time and resources are going to be wasted. In my prior playthroughs, I usually had my tanky characters wearing chainmail, while everyone else wore turtlenecks, and that seemed to work out just fine. If you have thoughts on this topic, though, feel free to comment below. And if you missed out on any of my other Kenshi guides, you can find their playlist right here. I'll see you all again in the next one. Good luck out there in the wasteland.